Yo, what's going on, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. And today we are finally going to be able to test run Eula. She has just come out and we would like to look at her abilities as well as get these free primo gems before we actually pick her up. I would always recommend trying the character before you get them, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get her either way. Now, as we always like to do, we like to look at her talents and constellations first before we actually see what her kit looks like in battle. Now, as far as her auto attack goes, I don't think there's too much special in here. She is a Claymore user, so you may need to learn when and where to auto attack cancel, probably with a dash. If there's any ending lag on any of her moves, which we'll probably discover pretty soon into the actual test run. So that's the only thing to note about her auto attack. I think everything else is pretty normal. She has a unique auto attack string, which is why I don't know where you'll want to cancel it, and I think she has a pretty unique charge attack string, but we'll see that all when we actually get into it. Now, when we move into her elemental skill, this is where we kind of get to see what her playstyle and pattern is going to be. Now, it's going to have a press and a hold version, but you're going to use them kind of alternatingly, but you're going to use the press twice in a row, I think is what's going to happen. So when you press it, she's going to slash swiftly, dealing cryo damage. When it hits an opponent, Eula is going to gain a Grimheart stack. She can get up to 2 Grimheart stacks, and you can only gain these once every 0.3 seconds. So this pretty much, the 0.3 second is just going to make it so you can't get more than one off of a single elemental skill. I believe. I don't think most skills have like a travel time around them. So as long as, if you're trying to hit multiple people and get multiple Grimheart stacks, it's probably not going to work like that. But what Grimheart is going to give you is it's going to give you resistance to interruption and increased defense. Now, when you hold it, however, you are going to consume all the stacks of Grimheart and lash out, dealing AoE cryo damage to opponents in front of you. If you consume Grimheart stacks, then the surrounding opponents will have their physical resistance and cryo resistance reduced. Each consumed stack of Grimheart will be converted into an Ice Whirl brand that deals cryo damage to nearby opponents. So, essentially, you're going to want to press your skill to build up these Grimheart stacks, and then when you have Grimheart stacks, you're going to want to hold the skill to unleash them. The more Grimheart stacks you have when you hold it, the more of these Ice Whirl brands you're going to get, so you'll get more cryo damage out of it. But the important thing, I think, is going to be that you're going to want to at least consume 1 stack to get this resistance cut. And I think that Eula is mainly going to be a physical damage character, so while she does lower cryo resist, I think you're mainly concerned with the physical resist cut here, and you can combine it with other physical resist cuts that is going to make it a lot easier to do a whole bunch of physical damage. Now, something important to note when we look at the skill's cooldowns is her press cooldown is only 4 seconds. But her hold cooldown is 10 seconds. So when you are consuming all those Grimheart stacks, you're not going to be able to get stacks for a really long time. Now, this is important because I think the set that's going to be best on her is one of the new sets, the Pale Flame set. And the Pale Flame set gives you more attack every time you hit someone with an elemental skill, and it can stack up twice. And then once you have it stacked twice, you get extra bonuses like more physical damage. Now, the thing with this is the Pale Flame has a duration of 7 seconds, which means if you're pressing this skill constantly, then you don't have to worry about that 7 seconds ever running out, so you can be at that maximum 2-stack bonus of physical damage. The problem comes when you start to hold the skill, because then all of a sudden you've used it, you're probably at your max Pale Flame stacks, but now you're on a 10-second cooldown, so your Pale Flame stacks are going to go away before you can use an elemental skill again. But there is a way around this. There's actually multiple ways around this, which we'll get to eventually, but the next one's coming soon. So let's go ahead and get into her elemental burst, and then we'll talk about like her playstyle and pattern. She's going to brandish her greatsword, dealing cryo damage to nearby opponents, and create a lightfall sword that follows her around for 7 seconds. While the lightfall sword is present, it's going to increase her resistance to interruption again, which is pretty good. And when Eula's own normal attack, elemental skill, and elemental burst deal damage to opponents, they will charge the Lightfall Sword, which can gain a stack every 0.1 seconds. Again, I think this limiter is in here. So, like, even if you're trying to cleave people with your auto attacks, you might not be able to hit people outside of that 0.1 seconds. So, like, depending on how slow her auto attack moves, you might hit all the people in your auto attack in less than 0.1 seconds, in which case you won't be able to get multiple stacks. But if it's slow enough, because 0.1 seconds is really fast, so in theory you might be able to hit 2 people with the same auto attack and get 2 charges on this. Now, why are you trying to get these charges? Because once the duration of the Lightfall Sword ends, it will descend and explode violently, dealing physical damage. So this is where you kind of get that she's a physical character. To nearby opponents, this damage scales to the number of energy stacks the Lightfall Sword has accumulated. If you leave the field with Eula, the sword explodes immediately. The maximum number of stacks she can have is 30. So you're going to try and get as many as you can. I think it might be difficult to get to max without any constellations, but we'll see in practice. Looks like the cooldown is a pretty normal 20 seconds. The energy cost is a kind of high 80 seconds, which means that she's likely going to want to be paired with a good cryo unit that can generate energy for her, such as Ganyu, who can benefit from her cryo resist shred, or Rosaria, who will not only benefit from her cryo resist shred, but will also give more physical resist shred to Eula, so Eula can deal more damage. Now, when we move on to her first passive talent, I believe it's called Roiling Rhyme, is how I would say that. If you consume 2 stacks of Grimheart upon using the hold of your elemental skill, a shattered Lightfall Sword will be created that will explode immediately, dealing 50% of the basic physical damage from the Lightfall Sword created by Glacial Illumination. So Glacial Illumination, you see here your base damage, and this is obviously going to go up as you level up the skill. This is the level 1 skill at the moment. But that is going to immediately deal 50% of whatever this number is as physical damage, which is, she's physical. You can see why she's going to be a physical character. And once this number gets pretty big from you having a really strong elemental burst, then this is going to become more useful, and you can see why you're actually going to want to consume those Grimheart stacks as often as possible. But you have to consume 2 for this to actually work, so you're going to want to actually build up 2 and not just hold after 1 every single time, because even though 1 is going to give you the physical resist shred, you're not going to get this explosion, and I think this explosion is going to be enough damage to actually warrant you wanting to get to 2 every single time. Now, when we get to her next passive talent, this is where you kind of see what her basic playstyle pattern is going to be. When Glacial Illumination is cast, the cooldown of Icetide Vortex is reset, and Eula gains 1 stack of Grimheart. Now, so what you're pretty much going to want to do is you're going to want to use your elemental skill, or the press version, twice, until you get 2 Grimheart stacks. Then you're going to want to hold it to unleash the Grimheart stacks, deal a whole bunch of damage, get that exploding Light Force Sword, or Lightfall Sword. I keep thinking Light Force Sword. But you're going to want to get that effect, and then you're going to have a 10-second cooldown. Now, I said earlier, 10-second cooldown ruins your Pale Flame set. But with this, now that means that you can immediately use Glacial Illumination after consuming your Grimheart stacks, and it will reset your Icetide Vortex and give you 1 stack of Grimheart. This means that you are going to then use your Icetide Vortex to continue the Pale Flame bonus for longer, and then after 1 use of your Icetide Vortex, you are going to have 2 Grimheart stacks again, and this means you're going to be looking to use another hold of Icetide Vortex. And at about this time, your Glacial Illumination is going to be running out, so you're going to be proccing 2 Grimheart stacks, which will do a half Lightfall Sword, as well as the full Lightfall Sword going off. So you're going to have a big burst of damage right here, and you're going to be guaranteed that the physical resist down or shred is on because you're just using the hold on here. You're going to have fully stacked Pale Flame, so you're going to get maximum damage, but after this, your Pale Flame is likely going to fall off unless you have some constellations, and we'll talk about that in a second here. But that's pretty much the basic pattern. So you're going to be able to keep Pale Flame fully stacked for almost like a solid 20 seconds, which is pretty good and probably enough for you to get out your damage. And then by that time, you'll have a few seconds downtime where this skill is on cooldown still. You probably don't have enough energy to recast Glacial Illumination, and it's still going to be on cooldown. So you'll want to be looking to bring out another character at that time anyways. So I think it's kind of self-explanatory how you want to play her. Now, her last passive talent for the world is kind of cool. I think it's the first time where we can craft character talent materials, and she has a 10% chance to receive double product. I believe this means talent books. I could be mistaken on that, but talent books, a bonus to talent books would be nice. Just means you have to farm a little bit less, right? All right, now let's get to the constellations, because I think her first two constellations are fantastic, and I think after that, it's not really necessary, but all of them are pretty good. Let's talk about Constellation 1. Every time Icetide Vortex's Grimheart stacks are consumed, Eula's physical damage is increased by 30% for 6 seconds. 30% is a pretty decent amount of physical damage increase, and it's going to be really valuable. You'll get this for 6 seconds. Each stack that you consume is going to increase the duration of the effect by 6 seconds up to a maximum of 18 seconds. So if you're just constantly chaining consuming Grimheart stacks, then you're going to be able to stack this up to a lot higher duration, and that means you're going to be able to keep this going, because if you ever get this to 18 seconds, then it's probably never going to fall off as long as Eula is out and on the field, because you're just going to be able to just keep refreshing it over and over and over, especially with more constellations. Now, Constellation 2 I think is really important because it kind of enables her to play in a way where she never has to leave anymore. I think that without any constellations, you kind of see that there is a downtime where she can't do anything for a few seconds. So you want to switch to a different character and maybe generate some energy for her, set up some shields, or create some more physical resistant shreds for her to come back out. But this one makes it so your Icetide Vortex's hold mode is now the same cooldown as the press mode, which means hold mode cooldown is now 4 seconds and not 10 seconds. So you could keep up Pale Flame forever now, which also means you could keep up this Tidal Illusion forever. It can't, well, technically it could go away. The way you would have to keep up this one is by consuming 1 Grimheart stack a lot instead of consuming 2. So you could infinitely loop it, but it's easier once you actually have this. Now, when we move on to her Constellation 3, it's going to increase her Elemental Burst level. Then Constellation 4 is going to make Lightfall Sword deal 25% increased damage against opponents with 50% or less HP. I think this one's kind of meh. It can be pretty good against bosses. You'll probably want to make sure you're using the Lightfall Sword on a boss that's below 50%. If he's around 50%, definitely wait till he's below 50% if you have this one, because it's going to deal a significant amount more damage. Now this is going to increase her elemental skills level by 3. And then finally we have her Constellation 6, which is going to make Lightfall Swords start with 5 stacks. So you saw that it goes up to 30, and normal attacks, elemental skills, and elemental bursts are going to have a 50% chance to grant the Lightfall Sword an additional stack. So every time you attack or use a skill or your elemental burst, you're getting 1 stack. This is going to give you a 50% chance to get 2 stacks when you do that. So it's going to make it much more likely that you can actually get to the full 30 stacks and get the maximum damage out of this. I don't know how difficult it's going to be to get to 30 stacks. I would assume it's quite difficult unless you're really good at canceling, because you only have 7 seconds to stack it up. It's not like you have forever. So A Claymore character doesn't attack that quickly, and I don't think it doesn't say charged attack counts, so you're relying on your normal attacks. So you're going to want to like string together normal attacks and then cancel out with your elemental skill, and your elemental burst is already going to give you some. It doesn't seem feasible for you to actually get to 30 without this effect, where essentially you only need to get to 25 and you have 50% of the time where you're getting double. So if you think about it, you kind of only need to get like 18, 17, or 18 if you have this constellation. Whereas if you don't have the constellation, you need to get a full 30. Now, can you get 17 or 18? I'm not exactly sure how feasible that is either. I think it's going to take a lot of hitting very many enemies with things. But let's go ahead and actually give her a try now. I'm pretty excited for this one because I think she looks really cool. Her video was really cool. Her auto attack animations I think are going to look amazing. What sword does she have? She has her sword, which you could have assumed. And this is her attack string. So let's see that one more time. It looks really good, but I think she does have quite a bit of end lag. So you're probably going to want to cancel out there or one of the slower attacks before the last one. The last one actually seems like it takes too long to actually come out, but it might deal damage enough for you to want to have it come out. I'm not exactly sure. It looks like we got Lisa to make sure we can superconduct. And what kind of gear did they provide us with? Now this sword gives physical bonus damage, but it does not give very much physical bonus damage, huh? I know you get a whole bunch of attack and attack speed out of this effect. That's literally like an entire page is the effect. It looks like they did put her on plus 20 Pale Flame, and they gave her almost no crit damage. That's surprising. Where is physical bonus damage on here? She's got 58 from her artifacts. Total, she has 102. Is her class stat physical bonus damage? I'm not exactly sure on that one. How much? Is it crit damage? Actually, it might be crit damage because she's got 70, 80% crit damage coming from nothing. So her class stat must be crit damage then. I wonder where she's getting all that physical. It must be, the rest of the physical must be coming from 18% here plus 25% here. I think that explains it. Okay, so let's go ahead and give her a try. Now we'll try her auto attacks first. See how big a hit this last thing is. It's not that big a hit, so I almost think you want to maybe cancel out right there. I wonder if you can cancel out with her skill. Yeah, there you go. So, where do we see the Grimheart stacks, though? I'm not sure where we see the Grimheart stacks. Oh, I see him now. We have 3? You can have 3 Grimheart stacks? I thought you could only have 2. Okay, so let's try this. We want to try a hold really quick. So let's hit him with the hold. That lowers it. Oh my god. And you saw the explosion there that did a whole bunch of damage. It's always going to work like that just because of how her skills are built. She's always going to get the physical resist cut. And then immediately a physical explosion is going to go off. So if we hold... I feel like I'm struggling with not getting knocked out of my attacks. Let's kill this guy and then do another. Because I really want to make use of this elemental burst, but I want to like chain it appropriately. So let's go ahead and try this again. We go, hit, and kind of chain until our skill's back up again. And now we're going to go for the combo. So we'll do this, and then we'll use her elemental burst, which resets her skill, and now we should have 2 Grimheart stacks again, so we'll go for another hold. And you can see that our physical damage right now, we're hitting for 10,000 on crits, which is pretty freaking good. She's about to die, So I guess we will come out with Lisa here. Are you the last guy left? Can Eula kill you? Wait for him to throw the dagger. Okay. With 115 HP, we were able to pull it out. I think that's more of... I'm not really familiar with how to play Eula very well, so I was just kind of spamming auto attacks and then using my skill. Let's just see her elemental burst and her auto attack string one more time. It's a really good auto attack string. But what is her charge attack one? It's not really that special. Actually, I think it's exactly the same as like a Beta or a Diluc. And then we got our press skill, which is kind of just like a quick slash. And then the hold skill, which is you spin around once before you do the slash. And then her elemental burst. It looks pretty cool, but it's not that flashy, huh? And then the sword will explode, obviously, after 7 seconds. That's a pretty big radius. That's almost Ganyu-sized elemental burst radius. So you don't really have to be that close to the enemy to make sure that that explosion goes off. But anyways, that is our test run for Eula. Look forward to summoning her in the next one. And I also forgot that she came out with a story. So we'll probably be looking at her story after that as well. But either way, hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned something and maybe you understand how to play Eula more than you did before. But either way, that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed and I will see you next time.